Okay, hi everyone. My name's Anissa.
And my name is Stacy.
Okay, so we're doing our presentation on which lie detection tools are ready for use in the criminal justice system, and the authors are Aldert Rich and Ronald Fisher. We had quite a task to do this one because there's no participants, no background, no method, nothing like that. So we had to ask Dr. K for help a little bit to understand how to put this together because the criteria that she posted that the PowerPoints and the presentations have to meet, our article didn't have much of any of that. So we had to be able to pick it apart, put it together, and make a basically explain everything that's in the presentation. So we're gonna start with there we go. Okay, so the purpose of the article was to see which techniques are ready to use in the criminal justice system and investigative interviews. So I'm going to go over the techniques that are currently used, and later Stacy will go over the criteria that they have to meet to be able to be used in court, because some of them are used even though they're not able to be used in court. Okay, so for arousal-based lie detection tools, the first one we have is behavioral analysis interview, and this consists of a set of standardized questions and is used to determine whether a suspect is guilty. If determined to be guilty, they are the Reed 9-step interrogation begins. So when they first are asked these questions, they're not considered suspects at the time, so they're basically just interviewees. But if the interviewer believes they are suspects, then they move on to the 9 steps interrogation, which is used solely for suspects and to get more in-depth detail, or attempt to get more. And during BAI, liars feel more uncomfortable and show more nervousness than truth tellers. So they fidget a lot, they don't know where to look, you can see them thinking. And then comparison question polygraph. The CQT examinees are hooked up to a regular polygraph and are asked relevant questions, which is like, did you kill John Doe last Wednesday? And then comparison questions. And then the examinees who respond strongly to comparison questions, are considered to be truthful, and those who react more strongly to relevant questions are considered deceptive. And then both of these techniques are based on a person's arousal or anxiety during the interview. So like what their heart rate is and how much they're sweating, what they act like during the interview. And then even though these two are most used, they fall short on different criteria. Okay, so for cognition-based lie detection tools, the first one is imposing cognitive load, which someone talked about today in our class. So this is when you ask the person being interviewed to do something while you have them explain what happened. So that's like what we did in class practicing to give someone a phone and have them play a game while they're also telling you what happened in reverse order. So that increases cognitive load. So it's really hard for liars to be able to remember their lie plus play a game plus tell it in reverse order. So it really messes up their cognitive load. Liars are less able than truth tellers to cope with additional requests. And then, so that means truth tellers are able to play the game, do reverse order, and tell what happened without any hesitation. Encouraging interviewees to say more. So this one is when asked for more detail of their narrative, liars will provide less new information than truth tellers. So liars don't want to add more information because they're scared that they're not going to remember what they said. And then truth tellers don't have a problem with adding more detail because it's actually what happened. Asking unexpected questions, liars attempt to prepare for what questions they will be asked. When asked to a mixture of unanticipated and anticipated questions, liars are found answering the unanticipated questions harder. So when they think liars are prepared to go through an interview, but when someone throws a question that they're not expecting, they're not able to put together an answer as quickly as truth tellers are, because truth tellers can just say exactly what happened. There we go. Okay, and then strategic use of evidence. Liars tend to avoid and deny certain details, such as where they were at the time of the event. And then, on the other hand, truth tellers are usually open books and have no problem providing details. So liars, they don't want to talk about certain things because they know it's going to inhibit them from doing so. verifiably approach. Liars are more inclined to add extra details to their stories and make it seem more believable. But when this happens, they are unable to remember the little details of the lies that they put into their big story of a lie. So when they are asked to do reverse order or something, they're not able to remember those small details. Concealed information polygraph test is used when examinees say that they have no information about the crime, and then the questions asked are multiple choice, so they have options, and then they have to see which one's right. Liars recognize the correct answer and show physiological responses, so they know the right answer because they were there, and even though they're trying to lie about it. And then the truth tellers actually don't know the right answer to that.
So the criteria. The authors developed 10 criteria in order to test each technique to see if they're ready to be used during investigative interviews. It judges the technique's usefulness during the interviews. So this here is a table of all the questions. The questions are on the left, there's 10 of them, and then the top are all 8 of the interviewing techniques. So just the ones that are highlighted are the ones that are ready to be used during investigative interviews, and then I will get into more detail about the reasoning behind each one in the next slide. So the criteria. Criteria 1 through 5 was derived from the Daubert guidelines, which are the ones that have to be met in order to be used during U.S. Criminal court cases. So pretty much if they don't meet those ones, then they already cannot be used during the investigative interviews. So criteria 6 is easy incorporation. So it pretty much addresses if it can be incorporated easily into an interview. So ones that have a difficult time passing that is the polygraph test, because it is a standalone test and has its own protocols. So it cannot be used during a standard investigation. Therefore, it doesn't pass the easy incorporation. Criteria 7 addresses, does it affect the truth teller's response? So some techniques affect the interviewee. So for example, imposing cognitive load, that has to do with doing a certain task during it. And if the person has a hard time telling both doing the task as well as telling the answer to the interview, then obviously that's going to affect the accuracy of the response. So that's what criteria 7 is. Criteria 8 addresses, are the techniques easy to use? So interviewers are not going to want to use a technique that's hard for them to do. So for example, behavior analysis, what was that one? Behavior analysis technique, that's once you have to use certain questions, and determining, going off of what the interviewee is answering, they have to base their questions off of that one, which can be somewhat difficult for some of the interviewers. So that one just addresses the easiness of each technique. And criteria 9 is protection against lie biases, so false positives and false negatives. So for example, in the using the arousal-based technique is prone to false positives, because some people are just nervous people in general, so obviously they're going to come up as a false positive. So criteria 9 just protects against that. And criteria 10 addresses counteracting these techniques. So a suspect can easily, with behavioral analysis technique, they can easily look up the questions as well as the responses just to prepare themselves for that one. As well as another example would be the psychopath. They don't show emotion, so they're easily able to pass the, for example, lie detector test. So the final verdict, which lie detection tools are ready to be used, which ones are not ready to be used. Number 1 are the 2 arousal-based techniques. Like I said, they fall short in regards to the 10 criteria, but they are used frequently. And the imposing cognitive load also causes too many problems. As I mentioned earlier, the truth teller may feel just uncomfortable. That's why they don't pass the test. But the other 2 cognitive approaches do pass the 10 criteria. So it is encouraging interviewees to say more and strategic use of evidence. Based off of the 10 criteria, they're the only 2 that pass the test.
And are ready for use.
And ready for use in the criminal justice system.
Thank you.
Thank you.